Probably the most annoying encounter to learn in Epic Desert Perpetual, besides the final boss, is Iatros. Just because there are so many moving factors going around, and it's hard to know what's going on until you actually visually and physically learn it yourself. So that's what we're going to do with this guide. Let's start with the basics. You split up into 3 teams of 2 for this encounter, and the ring in the middle that would normally be static and just not spinning at all is now spinning, and it's also hiding the colors of the ring. On top of that, the Minotaurs that would spawn normally in the center of the arena to drop chronons for you are now going to be spawning on the sides of the arena, 2 on top, 2 on the middle, and then 2 on the bottom. These sets of Minotaurs are now assigned a color for the chronon that they drop. For example, middle could be blue, bottom could be red, and then top could be white. And they will always be this static color no matter how many times you kill the Minotaurs that spawn in your section. Though I will quickly note that if you wipe, then the color could change for your side, and next time blue could be red, and so on. The next portion of the fight is figuring out what color the ring is showing to initially start the boss fight. So normally, you can't see it, but there will be Vex plates that spawn in on the bottom, middle, and top of the arena for each team to step on one at a time. So, one person will get on a plate, and then they will be able to see what color the spinning ring is, and then call it out for the rest of the team. So let's say the first color is blue. The middle team had blue chronoms spawn when they killed the Minotaurs, so they pick up their 2, and they will then go jump through the ring to fill the hourglass. Key note here is that you need to jump together, same time, or maybe like 1 second apart, because after a few seconds, the color will change on the ring. It will not show you what change it is, by the way. And then if you dunk separately, like 3 seconds apart, that second player is going to die. After your first 2 successful dunks, you then move on to a different area and somebody else steps on their Vex plate. And again, they can then see the color of the ring and they call it out. So the first one was blue. The second one is red. Now the team that had red chronons from Minotaurs will go and dunk through the ring to fill the glass again. After this, with process of elimination, you know what the third color is. It's going to be white, so dunk 2 white chronons in, and you will fill the hourglass to proceed with the fight. At that point, this is where the tomfoolery begins for the fight. So, you're going to divide into 3 different teams. It's going to be 1 person as a team on their own, being the climber for the fight. Then there will be 2 players. There'll be a team for killing Minotaurs and dunking into the hourglass, keeping the sand up so you don't wipe. And then there will be a third team of 3 players who would divide themselves between the 3 different buffs in this arena, which are going to be constant, absolute, and cyclical. The players that are in charge of Minotaurs pretty much do the exact same thing they would do in normal, except you need to remember the order of the color of the rings that you did to start the fight. So remember, I said blue, red, and white. Since we just filled the hourglass, that order now restarts, and it goes back to blue. Someone will dunk blue, or you dunk 2 blues, then the color will change to red. You dunk red, it'll change to white. You dunk white, it'll change to blue, and so on. It'll always rotate in this exact same order, and this is how you know which Minotaurs you need to kill and which colors you need to dunk in the ring without actually seeing the color. Now, normally, what you can do is just simply have the Minotaur runners dunk 2 at a time on each location that you need them at, right? So you dunk 2 blues, 2 reds, blah, blah, blah. However, I think the ideal process is actually going to be splitting them up and doing 1 dunk at a time per color. This is because if you chase down the Minotaurs on the same side every single time together, the other side is completely unattended, and those Minotaurs, those Harpies, and so on, are probably aiming at your climber. And if they're aiming at the climber, they probably are going to get killed because they have a ton of ads on them the entire time they're trying to climb. So I personally recommend just splitting up. So for example, let's say the next 2 colors are going to be red and white. You're going to send player 1 to the section where you can get a red chronom and kill the Minotaurs there, and the other player will go to the white section and kill the ads there. That way, neither of these sides are going to be focusing on your climber. Then for dunking purposes, you simply go, okay, red dunker go, jump in, done, wait 3 seconds, then white dunker, jump in, and you're done. Bang. The process is done. Now you do the exact same thing. You split up to go into blue, and then the other person splits up going to red. Now for the most annoying part of the fight. So the 3-man team, you guys are going to be using the buffs of the raid, which are going to be constant, absolute, and cyclical. The very bottom of the arena, the red side, the lowest part, that's going to be constant, and that tower with those cubes are going to belong to the constant player. The middle side, which is going to be to the right of what I just mentioned, that's going to be absolute, the middle tier of the arena. And finally, the very top, aka the spawn point with the rally flag, that is going to be cyclical. There's going to be a Vex plate to step on in each side of this arena, and when you step on, bang, you will have your buff. This is where things get a little different from the normal version. Normally, you would say, you know, a 3, 2, 1, shoot bottom, right? Or whatever your countdown method is for your team. and you would all shoot the bottom cube. That is not the case anymore. Now the cubes are associated by color, and the order of which you shoot them depends on the color that is shown on a capsule in the arena. So, the towers from top to bottom are always going to be this static color every single time. That is blue at the top, white in the middle, and red at the bottom. You know, or insert France joke here or whatever. That's always going to be the case for the cube system. Now, how do you find out which cube you're going to shoot at your designated tower? So, when you get to this portion of the fight, there are going to be 3 little capsules or containers that are going to have chronons in them on one of the plates in the arena. This will designate where the climbing section will take place as well. So, hypothetically, as an example, let's say that the cyclical side got these containers to have chronons in them. The other ones should be empty for now. So, you're going to see 3 colors in these containers, 1 in each, that is. Whoever sees these colors just simply calls them out. So, as a hypothetical example, let's say the colors are going to be white, white, red. You also notice that these containers are on these little pillars, which are elevated differently. One will be the small pillar, one will be the medium pillar, and then one will be the tall pillar. These are basically intentional. This is telling you which buff shoots what. So the smallest pillar is associated to constant, the medium pillar is associated to absolute, and the tall pillar is associated to cyclical. So the callout is white, white, red. That means constant is going to be shooting the white box, which is middle. Then absolute is shooting the white box, which again is middle. And cyclical is shooting the red box, which is the bottom of their tower, respectively. So in the diastole phase, those are the 3 boxes that are going to be shot together at the same time. You go 3, 2, 1, or whatever your countdown is, and then mid, mid, and bottom will be shot, respectively, for each tower. That will then spawn in the plates for the climber to utilize to get upwards and continue the encounter. Now what happens next is the capsules will now be spawning on those platforms that the climber is jumping up on. They relay the colors to you for you to continue the fight. So the climber is going to say blue, blue, red as the capsules that they see. This is going to be your next set of callouts. So now we know that constant needs to shoot blue, which is the top of their tower. Absolute also needs to shoot blue, which is the top of their tower. And then cyclical, once again, needs to shoot red, and that's the bottom of their tower. Do the exact same countdown and get the boxes broken, and you continue the fight and spawn another set of platforms for the climber to jump up on, and they do the exact same thing. They will then relay another callout for you, and your fire team does this a 3rd time to complete the climbing phase. Now, there is one thing to note while all of this is happening, and that is when you are shooting boxes with your buff, you might get your buff changed to something else. So if you are the cyclical player and you shot a box, you might have your buff change to either absolute or constant. It seems like 2 players can potentially get their buffs changed when this happens, so just keep an eye on the buff at the top of your screen. Should you get your buff changed, there's 2 things you can do. Number 1 is your team just simply adapts to the change, and then you become a different buff player, and you go to a different tower. So if you are cyclical and you now have constant, then you're just paying attention to the bottom tower now instead of the top one, and the same goes for the other players. Or if you think that's too much to juggle, you could assign each player back to their original plate, so cyclical goes back to top, etc., and then you get on the plates to get your original buff back, so you just continue the fight as you were. Though this might cost you some time, which could cause a wipe potentially, so I will leave that choice up to you. The final 2 changes are going to be happening to you during the damage phase, although one of them is happening to you prior to damage also. The first one is diastole. You'll notice now, instead of just booping you if you're on the ground on the 4th cube, you will be suspended instead. So obviously this can cause you to get killed, especially if you're near the boss. You're basically a sitting duck. So you want to try to avoid getting booped and just simply jump when it's at 3 cubes to avoid that entirely. Same thing during the damage phase. You're obviously going to be near the boss trying to damage him, so you need to keep that in mind. The second change is going to be if you're doing Iatros as your 2nd or 3rd boss in your rotation in the epic raid. That change is going to be taking a mechanic from a different boss that you did previously and adding it to the damage phase of Iatros. So as an example, if you did the Hobgoblin first, you will then get a Hobgoblin laser trying to snipe and kill you during the damage phase of Iatros, and you have to break line of sight in order not to get sniped and reset your timer. If you did the Hydra, then you would be getting those stupid detain bugs that are incredibly annoying. If Iatros is your first boss, then you don't have to worry, you're just going to have Diastole on, and that's the only thing. Finally, let's talk about the actual damage phase. So for Iatros, not much has changed in terms of just the weapons used for damage, though I will say, given the circumstances of annoying diastole, suspend, plus potentially a different boss trying to kill you, I think burst weapons are your best choice overall for this fight. So, parasites, grenade launchers in the heavy slot, like legendary ones, for example, and then also having something like Myth Retrograde, which you don't need to actually crit Iatros, you just simply shoot them, and you're fine there. Additionally, also weapons that can give you a ton of super energy quickly are also really good. So the Antidate SMG, even though you're not getting crits, you're still getting plenty of super energy, and also Weebu rounds for more ammo, etc. And then fusion rifles as well, because they give you good chunks of super energy when you hit an enemy. So the Raid Fusion, for example, from DP, you can use here to get good chunks of energy. And that is it for the Iatros boss fight on epic difficulty. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll try to get to them. Or if I happen to have missed anything, let me know in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video or this guide has helped you, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. If you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to leave as a comment, you can leave Iatros as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Stay tuned for the other guides.